Okay, so the question is, can evolution be compatible with the creation story that's in Genesis? And I'll just say a couple of things. Nobody knows how old the world is. Scientists would like to say that the world is billions of years old. Some Christians would say that the world is only maybe 4,000 years old. But there's a verse in the New Testament that says that one day to God is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like one day. And that's in the Second Peter, I believe. Let's see here if I can find it. It's 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8 that says that. And for a lot of people, a lot of Christians believe that, one day, some people take it very literally and they say that it's 24 hours. And then some people will say that one day is like 1,000 years, or maybe it's like 1,000,000 years, maybe even 1,000,000,000 years. And so with that, the bottom line is that nobody knows really how long it took for the world to be formed, or how long did it take to create the world. And so there is some connection there between evolution and creation in terms of how things happened, not so much with the time, because that's God's timing is very different than our timing. So we really don't know anything about that. But the evolutionary track on what evolved first and then moved forward versus what happens biblically in the creation story. First day, there was light. You end up getting a difference between night and day. The water was created. Land was created. Then you get fish that were created. God created birds. God created animals. And then finally, God created people. And so there is a very common track that follows in the evolutionary theory as well, because you know that in that theory, life began in water, in the oceans, and you get fish. They crawl out, become amphibians, and then become animals, and eventually humans are evolved out of all of that. So there's a commonality there. And the funny thing in all of this is that the Bible certainly is way, way older than what Charles Darwin had and the theory of evolution. The Bible's been around for thousands of years, and the scientific method and Charles Darwin has been around for less than 200 years. And so there's some interesting, who do you trust more? Do you trust what just came up and keeps changing in terms of the scientific evidence and whatever people are discovering? Or do you trust the Bible that's been around a lot longer and it still holds true? The funny thing also is that archaeology, and there's all kinds of discoveries that scientists are making now that actually back up what the Bible says about the creation story. That would involve the flood with Noah and Mount Ararat back in the 1960s and 70s. They've actually had people up in Turkey who have discovered parts of the wood of the ark up there in the mountains, and that verifies Noah's ark. Scientists have proved and shown that the languages that we have, many language families that we have, they've come from the Mesopotamian area, also right next to where Mount Ararat is, and people who started wandering away from there made up the population of the world after the flood. And so there's lots of connections there. And there is a group of people, if you get online and look up biologos.org, there's a website for them, and this is an organization in Grand Rapids. Their mission is to invite the church and the world to see the harmony between science and biblical faith as we present an evolutionary understanding of God's creation. And one of the people who is part of that is Dr. James Stump, who used to work at Bethel College, where he was a colleague of mine when I taught there as well. And so he's a senior editor at this Biologos in Grand Rapids. He's written a bunch of articles, and one of them is the 10 misconceptions that people have with evolution and creation. And he basically writes a lot of interesting points that say that there's a lot of commonality between evolution and creationism. And if people really started discovering and looking up all of this information, they'll find out that science and the creation story match in many different ways. So there's a lot of misconceptions involving things like evolution claims that we evolved from monkeys, and Stump says that we do not, because evolution doesn't say that. Second law of thermodynamics disproves evolution. Evolution is merely historical science and therefore can't be tested or confirmed. Evolution is a theory in crisis, which he says it is not. And so there's different misconceptions that he is proving and points out in this website. A lot of folks who are interested in matching and working with creationists and intelligent design and with evolutionary ideas like this website and like this kind of an interpretation. I'm just telling you this is what's out there. I don't know if you'd agree with it or even if I agree with it. but that's what we have. Thanks a lot. I hope that helps a little bit. Bye.